The Catcher in the Rye, The Boy Who Tried to Stop Time. Sometimes a book doesn't just speak to you, it catches you mid-fall, between childhood and whatever comes next, and refuses to let go. That's what The Catcher in the Rye does. Written by J.D. Salinger and first published in 1951. It's the story of one boy's restless walk through New York City and, somehow, through every restless heart that's ever felt alone. Salinger himself was a quiet storm of a man, a soldier who survived D-Day, a writer who later vanished into reclusion, and the rare artist whose silence became as legendary as his words. Though the novel never won formal prizes, it became something rarer, a permanent presence. It sold more than 65 million copies, translated into dozens of languages, banned and loved, attacked and adored, shaping generations of readers and writers from Sylvia Plath to Haruki Murakami. Listen to Holden Caulfield, the 17-year-old narrator, as he confesses, "Don't ever tell anybody anything on a tin. If you do, you start missing everybody." That single line holds an entire ache. The way growing up always feels like saying goodbye to something invisible. If this voice still makes you curious, stay with me. Let's step into the noise of mid-century New York, follow this boy in his red hunting cap, and ask why his loneliness still sounds like our own. And while you're here, if you enjoy journeys like this through the secret lives of great books, please like the video, subscribe to Echoes of Books, or consider supporting the channel so these stories can keep finding their echo in you. A Few Days in the City, A Lifetime in a Mind. When The Catcher in the Rye opens, Holden Caulfield is sitting somewhere in California, talking to us from a rest home where he's been sent to take it easy, right away. He warns us he's not going to tell his whole life story, just this madman stuff that happened before Christmas, after he got kicked out of Pensy Prep. That's how the novel begins, not with fireworks, but with a shrug that already feels like a confession. Holden is 17, tall, skinny, half boy and half ghost. His voice jumps between arrogance and heartbreak, like someone trying to laugh before he starts crying. He's just failed out of his 4th prep school, and he can't bear to face his parents. So he decides to leave early and drift through New York City for a few days before heading home. The city becomes his playground and his purgatory. He takes a late-night train, his red hunting cap tilted backward, the one piece of armor that feels like him. He checks into a crumbling hotel near Central Park, a place crawling with the kinds of people he calls phonies. He's fascinated and disgusted by them at the same time. He watches a couple in another room spitting water on each other for fun and mutters, "People are always ruining things for you." From there, the story unfolds as a wandering journey through the city's nightlife. Holden talks to strangers in bars, to taxi drivers who don't care where the ducks go when the lagoon freezes, to girls he doesn't love but desperately wants to feel close to. He meets 3 tourists from Seattle who adore movie stars and dance badly, but he still buys them drinks because being lonely is worse than being bored. Every encounter shows another layer of Holden's world, a city filled with motion but almost no connection. There's the date with Sally Hayes, the polished and perfect girl he's known for years. For a moment, he dreams of running away with her, living in a cabin in the woods, away from all the phonies. Sally just blinks, confused, and says, "Stop shouting." The moment collapses like a paper house. Holden's memories of Jane Gallagher hover over everything. Jane never appears directly in the book, but she's everywhere, his symbol of gentleness and truth. He remembers playing checkers with her, how she kept her kings in the back row. It's such a small, tender detail, yet it carries the weight of his entire longing. Jane represents the world before things went wrong, before his brother Allie died. Allie's death is the invisible center of Holden's story. He was 11, Allie 13. when leukemia took him. Holden smashed every window in the garage that night with his bare hands. The pain never healed, it just grew quieter. His red hunting hat once belonged to Allie. It's not just a quirk, it's a relic of love. As Holden drifts from one failed conversation to another, New York begins to change shape. The carousel in Central Park, the frozen pond, the museum with its glass cases, all become mirrors of his inner world. In the museum, he says he likes how nothing ever changes, how nobody'd move. He wants life to stay still. But the city refuses. One of the most painful nights comes when he sneaks into his parents' apartment to see his little sister, Phoebe. She's only 10, bright and fearless, and she sees through him instantly. "You don't like anything," she says. "Name one thing you like." Holden can't. Then he tells her what he wants to be, the catcher in the rye, saving children from falling off a cliff into adulthood. It's a dream so beautiful it hurts to hear. Later, he visits his old teacher, Mr. Antolini, who warns him that Holden is heading for a terrible fall. Mr. Antolini is kind, maybe too kind. When Holden wakes to find him patting his head while he sleeps, the boy panics and flees into the night. Whether the gesture was innocent or not, Holden's world collapses again. Every adult seems to betray him. By the time he meets Phoebe at the carousel the next day, he's broken open. She insists on running away with him. He tells her no. She cries. Then she rides the carousel while he watches in the rain, her blue coat spinning against the golden horses. Holden says, "It was so damn nice, watching her." It's the first time in the book he simply lets something be beautiful without trying to protect or explain it. The story ends with Holden in the rest home, quieter now, telling us he misses everyone, even the people he once hated. It's not a happy ending, but it's an honest one. For the first time, he admits he feels something other than anger. He's starting, just barely, to grow up. What makes this story unforgettable is not its plot, but its pulse. One boy's attempt to find something real in a world made of glass. Voice and form, the music of a mine. One of the first things people notice about The Catcher in the Rye is not what happens, but how it sounds. The book doesn't tell its story the way novels used to. It talks, it rambles, it contradicts itself. It feels alive, like someone whispering to you from across a diner table at 2 a.m. Holden's voice is the novel's true protagonist. It carries everything from his confusion, humor on heartbreak, and fear. When he says things like, "It's funny," don't ever tell anybody anything, it's. If you do, you start missing everybody. It's not just a thought, it's a rhythm, a sigh that turns into philosophy. Salinger wrote every line as if it were a jazz improvisation, loose but deliberate, circling back to the same notes, letting emotion set the melody. What's remarkable is that this seemingly simple teenage slang is actually the product of obsessive craft. Scholars who studied Salinger's manuscripts found hundreds of small revisions in the dialogue. He adjusted commas and repetitions like a composer tuning instruments. Every and all, every "it killed me," every "boy, I really did," was placed to mimic the patterns of spontaneous speech while secretly guiding the reader's empathy. Holden doesn't speak about feelings, he performs them. When he's nervous, his sentences shrink. When he's lonely, they spill over like an overfilled cup. The rhythm of his words mirrors the rhythm of his thoughts. This is why the novel feels so honest even when Holden lies. His syntax tells the truth. His mouth can't. At a time when American fiction was dominated by polished narrators and clear moral resolutions, Salinger broke the rules. He created what critics later called the voice-centered novel, a story where plot becomes secondary to consciousness itself. You don't follow Holden because of what he does. You follow him because you want to know how his mind will twist around the next moment. There's something universal in that pattern. The way we narrate our own days, the half-truths, the sudden jumps, the private jokes we don't explain, that's how Holden talks. He's not performing for us, he's trying to survive through words. His language is both armor and confession. Some readers mistake his language for immaturity. But listen closely. This voice is not childish, it's defensive. It hides grief behind sarcasm, tenderness behind mockery. When Holden says, "People never notice anything," it's both an accusation and a plea. Please notice me. His slang is not rebellion for style's sake. It's camouflage for pain. This is where Salinger's genius lies. He lets language carry emotional weight without spelling it out. The result is a kind of emotional realism that still feels modern. Writers like Jack Kerouac, Sylvia Plath, and even contemporary novelists such as Stephen Chbosky and Sally Rooney inherited this blueprint, the first-person confessional that sounds like a conversation rather than a confession. And perhaps the most radical thing is this: Holden speaks like he doesn't trust language at all. He keeps saying things like, "If you really want to hear about it," or "I don't know." It just kills me. He's constantly undercutting himself, afraid to sound sincere. That insecurity becomes the heartbeat of the novel. We begin to realize that the only truth he believes in is the act of speaking itself. By writing the novel as a stream of contradictions, Salinger built a mirror for the reader's own inner chatter, the way we all talk to ourselves when nobody's listening. Holden's story is not told to us, it's told through us. We recognize our own patterns in his hesitations, our own doubts in his stumbles. That is why the book still feels intimate 70 years later. The language is not from 1951, it's from the timeless space between thought and speech. Next, let's explore the beating heart behind that voice, Holden's desperate fight against time, and his impossible dream of saving innocence before it disappears. Innocence in Time, the boy who tried to stop the carousel. Every story hides one secret image that holds everything together. In The Catcher in the Rye, that image is simple: a field of rye on a cliff's edge. Holden imagines himself standing there, catching children before they fall off. He says, "I keep picturing all these little kids playing some game in this big field of rye and all. Thousands of little kids, and nobody's around. Nobody big. I mean, except me. And I'm standing on the edge of some crazy cliff. What I have to do, I have to catch everybody if they start to go over the cliff. It's a dream so pure it almost hurts." In that single vision, we understand everything Holden fears. Not death, not failure, but corruption. The slow erosion of innocence. For him, growing up means betrayal. It means becoming like the phonies who smile too easily and talk without meaning a word. When Salinger wrote this scene, America was busy rebranding adulthood as success. The early 1950s were the age of the new suburban dream, gleaming advertisements, and moral confidence after war. Everyone was supposed to move forward. But Holden, like Salinger himself, looked backward. He refused to join the parade. In his mind, the only thing worth protecting was the unbroken honesty of childhood, the ability to feel without calculation. The image of catching children before they fall becomes not just a fantasy, but a spiritual mission. Holden cannot save Allie, his brother who died young. He cannot save Jane Gallagher, who quietly slipped out of his reach. So he invents a space where innocence can live forever, even if he can't. It's his way of rewriting reality, an act of moral imagination against the world's decay. Yet what makes this image tragic is that Holden doesn't realize time itself is what he's fighting. He doesn't want to save children from danger. He wants to save them from change. The world of the museum, where everything stays still behind glass, seduces him precisely because it promises permanence. Nobody'd move, he says. Nobody'd be different. The only thing that would be different would be you. In that line, Salinger quietly exposes the paradox at the center of Holden's pain. He worships innocence, but he knows it dies the moment you try to keep it. Like a snowflake, it melts when you hold on too tight. The carousel scene at the end brings this idea full circle. Phoebe rides the horse, reaching for the golden ring, a small symbol of risk, of growing up. Holden sits in the rain, watching, trembling. For the first time, he doesn't try to stop her. He lets her reach. He lets her fall, if she must. He says, "It was so damn nice." Watching her. The thing with kids is, if they want to grab for the gold ring, you have to let them do it and not say anything. It's one of the quietest revelations in literature. The catcher learns he can't be the catcher. He can only be a witness. And maybe that's the truest act of love, to watch someone move forward without trying to freeze them in time. Salinger threads this theme through every object in space Holden encounters. The frozen lagoon, the changing seasons, the glass cases, they all echo the same question. What happens when purity meets the world? The novel's answer isn't easy. It tells us that loss isn't failure. It's how memory works. It's how love survives. There's an almost Buddhist stillness behind Salinger's vision, perhaps drawn from the author's own later fascination with Zen philosophy. In Zen, enlightenment isn't about stopping the world, it's about seeing it turn without clinging to it. When Holden finally smiles in the rain, we glimpse that moment of surrender. For a boy obsessed with catching others, he's finally caught by grace. In that final scene, innocence isn't restored, it's redefined. It becomes the courage to care in a world that keeps changing, the choice to keep watching with kindness. Holden hasn't grown up in the way adults expect. He's grown through the pain of knowing that nothing stays. Next, we'll explore what lies beneath that ache, the invisible wound that drives every word Holden speaks: grief, guilt, and the unhealed memory of a brother named Ali. Trauma and grief, ghosts that don't leave rooms. Behind Holden's sarcasm and quick temper hides something older than teenage rebellion. It's grief, raw, unresolved, and quietly shaping everything he says and does. We learn early on that his younger brother, Ali, died of leukemia when Holden was 13. It's mentioned almost casually, in a single paragraph, but its weight never leaves the page. It's as if the entire novel is written in the echo of that loss. Holden describes Ali with a tenderness that never touches any other character. "You'd have liked him," he says. He was 2 years younger than I was, but he was about 50 times as intelligent. He recalls Ali's bright red hair, his left-handed baseball glove covered in poems so he'd have something to read in the outfield. There's such purity in that memory, a brother who wrote poems on his glove. But the night Ali died, Holden smashed every window in the garage with his bare hands. He still has scars. They're never described as metaphorical, yet they are. His whole personality is a scar he's learned to talk through. Salinger knew this kind of pain intimately. He had seen death in its most mechanical form during World War II, not the quiet death of illness, but the anonymous death of battle. The trauma of war changed him. He returned home hollow, distrustful of noise, of people, of anything that looked too easy. When he wrote Holden, he poured that shell-shock sensibility into a boy who never fought a war but carries the same fatigue. Holden's restlessness, his insomnia, his inability to connect, all are symptoms of grief untreated. He wanders the city like someone looking for his brother in every crowd. His hatred of phonies is partly a projection of guilt. Allie was pure. Everyone else feels false in comparison, including Holden himself. There's a heartbreaking moment when he walks through Central Park late at night, freezing, wet, whispering to Allie to keep him company. "Don't let me disappear," he says. It's one of the only prayers in the novel. He doesn't speak to God, he speaks to his brother. Allie becomes his invisible witness, the proof that someone once saw him for who he really was. What makes Holden's grief so believable is that he doesn't talk about it directly. He talks around it, through jokes and complaints, distractions. That's how grief works. It finds its way through the cracks of everyday speech. When he mocks others, he's really mocking the part of himself that survived. When he calls people phonies, he's angry that they get to live easily while Allie does not. Mr. Antolini, one of the few adults who sees Holden clearly, warns him that he's heading for a terrible fall. Many readers interpret that fall as psychological collapse, but it's also moral, the fall into apathy that grief often brings. When you've lost something that mattered, everything else feels trivial. Holden lives in that fog of triviality. His language dances, but underneath it is silence. Salinger doesn't give Holden closure because grief doesn't work that way. Instead, he gives him small moments of tenderness that act like stitches. The scene with Phoebe, for instance, where she puts his red hunting hat back on his head before he leaves. That gesture is Allie's ghost made visible, a child reminding another child that love doesn't disappear, it changes form. Psychologists would later call what Holden experiences complicated grief, the kind that refuses to fade, that becomes part of identity. But Salinger was not diagnosing. He was confessing, in fiction, the pain of remembering too well. The reason Holden tells his story from a rest home is not to justify himself, but to speak the loss aloud, to translate pain into words before it swallows him whole. If we listen closely, The Catcher in the Rye isn't just about adolescence, it's about mourning, for a brother, for childhood, for a world before the war. It's the same mourning that haunted the 1950s beneath all the cheer of progress. The adults built suburbia, the children inherited silence. Holden becomes the spokesman for that silence, and maybe that's why his voice still resonates. We all carry ghosts that refuse to leave our rooms, people, moments, versions of ourselves. Holden's grief gives language to that ache. His story reminds us that healing doesn't always mean moving on, and sometimes it means learning to live beside what's gone. Next, we'll look outward, at the world Holden rejects, the phonies, the systems of power and illusion that make his honesty feel impossible. We'll ask what Salinger was really saying about American society, class, and the masks we wear to survive. Society and phoniness, a rebel in a world of masks. If Holden Caulfield had one word etched on his heart, it would be phony. He says it dozens of times, almost like a prayer turned sour. Everyone he meets seems fake: teachers, classmates, actors, strangers on trains, even people he admires for a moment. But phony in Holden's world doesn't just mean dishonest. It means hollow. It means someone who has traded sincerity for performance. In the shiny, confident America of the early 1950s, Holden's disgust was almost revolutionary. This was the decade when people were told to smile for the camera, buy a new refrigerator, build a perfect family, and hide anything that didn't fit the picture. Conformity was the national costume, and Salinger's novel arrived like a stain that wouldn't wash out. Holden didn't want to succeed. He wanted to stay human. His rebellion, though, isn't loud or political. quiet, moral, almost spiritual. When he walks away from Pensy Prep, he's not running from authority, he's running from hypocrisy. Every adult figure he meets seems to speak a script. Mr. Spencer, his old teacher, gives him a lecture about life being a game, to which Holden thinks, game, my ass. It's not defiance for its own sake, it's exhaustion. He's tired of pretending the world is fair when it clearly isn't. Through Holden's eyes, Salinger delivers one of the sharpest portraits of mid-century class anxiety. Prep schools, Ivy League futures, job interviews, they're all stages where everyone performs virtue and success while secretly terrified of falling behind. Holden, born into privilege, sees the machine from inside and rejects it. But here's the twist. His rejection depends on the very comfort he condemns. He can afford to drift through New York, spend money on hotels and cab rides, skip home for days. His rebellion is sincere, but it's cushioned. That contradiction makes him more real, not less. He's a critic trapped in the system he hates. This tension, moral clarity inside material privilege, makes Holden a kind of inverted Marxist figure. He senses the dehumanization of capitalist life, but doesn't have a vocabulary for it. So he invents one: phony. It's a teenage word for alienation. It condenses everything from false advertising to emotional manipulation into one syllable. You can hear this alienation in his encounters. The hotel elevator boy who doubles as a pimp. The woman who weeps at a sentimental movie but ignores her child. The Ivy League boys who boast about dating. To Holden, these people are ghosts in human form. They speak, but they don't mean. He's repulsed, yet drawn to them, like someone pressing a bruise just to feel something real. Salinger uses Holden's sensitivity as both diagnosis and mirror. The boy sees the hypocrisy of adults, but he also fears the possibility that he might become one of them. That's the real tragedy. His hatred of phoniness is also self-hatred in disguise. When he lies to a stranger on the train about being someone else, he laughs bitterly at himself. "I'm the most terrific liar you ever saw," he says. In that moment, the critic becomes the culprit. Feminist critics later noticed another mask in Holden's world, the way he idealizes women as symbols of purity while fearing their independence. Jane Gallagher, the girl he never calls, remains frozen in memory, playing checkers forever. Sally Hayes, alive and opinionated, frightens him. He wants connection without the risk of change. Salinger doesn't condemn him for it. He exposes the fragility behind it. Holden isn't a misogynist. He's a boy who doesn't yet know how to let others be human. There's also a quieter layer beneath his anger, compassion disguised as contempt. When he talks about the little boy walking along the curb, singing, "If a body catch a body coming through the rye," he isn't mocking, he's moved. He sees beauty in the unpolished, the unself-conscious. That's what he's really searching for. Authenticity not as perfection, but as vulnerability. In a way, Holden's moral rebellion anticipates the counterculture movements that came a decade later. Long before the beat poets or the hippies, he was wandering the city questioning what everyone else accepted. His rebellion doesn't need slogans, it needs honesty. He doesn't want to overthrow society, he wants to heal it. Even his mental breakdown, the moment when he collapses in the rain, watching Phoebe ride the carousel, feels less like defeat than release. The rain washes away the performance. He stops naming people phony. For the first time, he doesn't need to measure sincerity. He simply watches life move, unfiltered. Salinger wrote this at a time when authenticity was becoming a luxury. Advertisers sold it, politicians acted it, and citizens feared losing it. In that context, Holden's voice is a moral emergency, a reminder that to stay real in a false world requires constant heartbreak. What Salinger captured in Holden's war against phoniness wasn't just teenage disillusionment. It was the timeless human fatigue with masks. And yet, as we'll see in the next part, this exhaustion doesn't end in bitterness. Because beneath the noise of rebellion lies the oldest hunger of all, the need to connect, to be seen, to belong. Reader response and legacy, the book that grew up with us. When The Catcher in the Rye first appeared in 1951, it landed like a secret letter passed between generations. Adults were scandalized. Teenagers were electrified. Newspapers called it vulgar and dangerous. Teachers whispered about banning it. Yet within months, it was being read under desks, hidden in backpacks, traded in dorm rooms. A generation that had grown up in the shadow of war found in Holden Caulfield a mirror that finally spoke their language, confused, angry, funny, honest. Critics didn't know what to make of it. Some dismissed it as adolescent whining. Others recognized it as the birth of something new, a novel that sounded like real thought. Over time, the same quality that made adults nervous made it unforgettable: the voice. Holden wasn't polished or heroic, he was painfully sincere. And sincerity, especially in a world addicted to composure, felt revolutionary. By the 1960s, the novel had become the unofficial scripture of teenage rebellion. Students who marched against the Vietnam War carried copies of it in their jackets. The Beat generation read it as a cry for authenticity in an America choking on advertising slogans. Writers like Sylvia Plath, Philip Roth, and John Updike absorbed its rhythms into their own voices. Even Bob Dylan once said he wanted his songs to sound like Holden Caulfield talking to God. But time, like always, changed the conversation. By the 1980s and 1990s, The Catcher in the Rye was no longer underground. It was assigned in classrooms. That's when the backlash began. Some readers called Holden self-absorbed, privileged, and annoying. Others said the book was overrated, that it belonged to another era. On Reddit, you can find threads with thousands of comments debating the same question. Is Holden still relatable, or has he just grown old? And yet, for every reader who rolls their eyes, another quietly admits, I saw myself in him. It's almost a rite of passage. You meet Holden as a teenager, and you either love him or hate him, but you don't forget him. Then, if you return to the book later in life, something strange happens. You start noticing the tenderness behind the anger. You hear the exhaustion behind the sarcasm. You see that the story was never just about a rebellious kid. It was about compassion for the lost, the lonely, and the not yet healed. That's why the novel keeps resurfacing in new forms. In film and TV, Holden's DNA runs everywhere in The Graduate's Benjamin Braddock staring blankly into suburban emptiness. In Taxi Driver's Travis Bickle ranting against a rotten city. In the awkward sincerity of Lady Bird or the perks of being a wallflower. Every story about a young person struggling to stay real in a plastic world owes something to Salinger's creation. Even video games like Life is Strange echo Holden's melancholy. Young characters navigating grief, friendship, and authenticity in a society of performance. TikTok users quote his lines with irony but end up revealing what he felt. The constant tug between wanting to disappear and wanting someone to notice. Academics, meanwhile, have reinterpreted the novel through almost every lens imaginable. Feminist scholars unpack Holden's idealization of women, reading it as both fragile and revealing. Queer theorists find in his discomfort with intimacy a coded story of identity and repression. Trauma critics trace his mental breakdown as the echo of post-war American anxiety, a generation haunted by violence but taught to smile. And then there are the moral readings. which see The Catcher in the Rye as something deeper than rebellion, a spiritual search. Holden's dream of saving children from falling isn't just about youth, it's about redemption. It's a confession that, even when the world seems empty, he still wants to believe in goodness. Perhaps that's why the book continues to divide readers so sharply. It's not just a story, it's a test. It measures where you are in your own life. Teenagers see freedom. Adults see grief. Some see hypocrisy, others see hope. The book doesn't change, we do. Each rereading becomes a mirror that reflects how much innocence we've lost or rediscovered. And through all its controversies, the bans, the misreadings, the tragic association with crimes that borrowed its name, the novel has endured. It remains untamed, alive, impossible to categorize. That's rare. Most classics become museum pieces. The Catcher in the Rye stays stubbornly young, the kind of book that never stops looking you in the eye and asking, "Are you still real?" It's easy to forget that J.D. Salinger spent the rest of his life hiding from the world that loved his book too much. He stopped publishing after the 1960s, retreating to New Hampshire. He refused interviews, photographs, public appearances. People called him a recluse. But maybe he was just living out Holden's last wish, to keep something sacred untouched by phoniness. There's a strange poetry in that, a writer vanishing into his own story, protecting the same innocence his character could not. And so, The Catcher in the Rye grows with us. It changes shape depending on the reader, like a voice in your head that matures as you do. For one person, it's a rebellion. For another, a requiem. For another still, a quiet act of forgiveness. But for everyone, it's a reminder that growing up doesn't mean giving up on truth. Next, we'll bring all of these threads together: the language, the innocence, the grief, the rebellion, and the legacy, to ask one last question. Why does this story, written 70 years ago, still feel like it's talking directly to us? Conclusion: the courage to stay human. Every generation rediscovers The Catcher in the Rye and thinks it's the first to understand it. Maybe that's the secret of the book's immortality. It doesn't belong to a decade. It belongs to the feeling of standing on the edge of growing up, staring down at the unknown, and whispering, "Don't let me disappear." Holden Caulfield's story is not about rebellion for its own sake. It's about the cost of staying sensitive in a world that rewards numbness. Salinger once said that he wrote because he wanted to capture moments of grace before they vanished. That's exactly what Holden does. He catches them for just a second before the noise takes over. When he finally sits in the rain, watching Phoebe ride the carousel, we feel something shift. He doesn't save anyone. He doesn't solve anything. But he feels peace, that rare, quiet peace that comes when you stop fighting the world and start witnessing it. "It was so damn nice," he says. That line, almost embarrassingly simple, so carries the whole weight of growing up. It's the moment when cynicism gives way to wonder, when judgment gives way to love. What Salinger leaves us with isn't a solution, but an attitude, the courage to stay human, to stay open, even when everything around us feels fake, to keep noticing small, beautiful things, to believe that sincerity is not weakness but resistance. That's why Holden still speaks to us, even in a digital century full of filters and facades. We scroll through curated lives, through performances of happiness, and somewhere inside, that same question hums. Who's still real here? Holden's fear of phoniness has only multiplied in the age of algorithms. But his cure, honest feeling, unguarded speech, empathy for the lost, remains the same medicine we need. And maybe that's the lesson we keep missing. Holden doesn't teach us how to fix the world. He teaches us how not to harden in it. He reminds us that sensitivity, even when it hurts, is a form of wisdom. So, as the lights of New York fade and the carousel turns, we're left with one last question, the same one Holden might ask if he could see us now, when the world feels too loud, too polished, too performative. What's the one real thing you still hold on to? If this story still means something to you, if you've ever felt like you were falling and needed someone to catch you, leave a comment, share your thoughts, or tell me the moment in the book that stayed with you. And if you'd like to keep exploring the hidden worlds of literature, the voices that refuse to fade, please like the video, subscribe to Echoes of Books, or support the channel so we can keep bringing these stories to life.